Welcome to Democratic Television, a program of the Santa Clara County Democratic Party that brings insights, perspectives, and our attitudes of our always thoughtful Democratic guests. Today we're joined by Esha Menon, a researcher for Working Partnerships USA. Esha, thanks for being on Democratic Television.
Thanks for having me.
So, you are a researcher. You're responsible for finding out all the things that we need to do to make our world a better place. That's kind
correct.
of a lot of responsibility.
Just a little, just a little.
So how did you get into that? Well, let's start at the beginning. Where were you born? Where did you grow up? Where did you go to school?
Well, I'm kind of an international child. I was born in Kerala, which is a southern state in India.
Oh.
And it's a very lush place. It's often referred to as God's own country, just because we have a lot of religions, a lot of culture, a lot of traditions. Unfortunately, I didn't really live there too long, as my dad's company shifted him to Singapore.
Oh.
And that's where I spent most of my childhood, since I was 4 until I was 10. Singapore was a great place. It has, again, very different cultural experiences. Starting from kindergarten, I had to learn Mandarin.
Oh.
Yeah. And then I moved on to primary school. I mean, it was a British system, so you call it primary versus elementary.
Oh.
And you learn how to eat different foods, learn with different cultures, and they put a very important place in schools to have cultural days. So every different culture gets to bring food, bring their dress in their traditional clothes,
Oh.
so we can actually have some awareness. It was very clean. It's a very clean country, so I really enjoyed it. But along with the good, it also had some of very poignant moments for me, partly because that was my first interaction with people from different cultures, and some people may not have been as nice about it when you first meet them, and so I did experience a lot of prejudice as a child from my peers because of my skin color. And that was, at the time, it was really hurtful because you can't change something about yourself, just like your skin color, about who you are. But when I go back and think about it, it really just made me feel more, it made me realize the type of person I was. It made me more resilient. When people put you down, you get back up. And when you have such different interactions with people, it also made you realize that you don't want to ever treat someone differently just because they're different, because I know how it felt. So I think that type of mentality really sunk with me when I was in Singapore, and learned from there.
So you had parents to go home to and to talk about the experiences you've had. How were they in all of that? Were they great parents that didn't say to you, you're going to kick their butts? Or?
Well, my parents have been extremely supportive. When I told them about interactions I've had, my mom was up and at 'em. She was very, very angry about it, and she would go to school and talk to their teachers about how other kids are treating her child. And she's very progressive. She was she raised me most of the time during the time because my dad had to work a lot. He was a really hard worker, and he had to work late hours most days. That work ethic still stands strong to now. And she was the one who actually started bringing about issues like gender equality, anti-discrimination,
Wow.
just from that early age,
Wow.
just to give me something to hold on to.
Wow.
So they were great support for me during this time.
Wonderful. And then at some point you left Singapore and...
That's correct. It was during my 4th grade year. Our school system starts from January and ends in December. And during, I believe, around June or August, my dad tells me that his company again shifted us to California.
Oh.
And that was pretty exciting for me. Since I've had to deal with diversity and things like that, I had no problem being able to move somewhere. So at 10 years of age, we came to Santa Clara County.
Oh.
And I've been here since. I've done my schooling. I attended my first rallies here. I participated in my first vote. And yeah, and now I'm privileged to work here too. So
wow.
Since then.
So whereabouts did you go to college? Where did those years
I spent the
take
first 2 years at De Anza. Community College, and then I transferred over to UC San Diego. But I think my interaction with society first came in through De Anza, because it deals with, I mean, community colleges are great because it has not just one population. It has populations like different age groups, different ethnicities, and De Anza is a great college, and it's internationally renowned. So I had a lot of international friends come into play, and that's actually where I started first being an activist, if you'd say, where I joined the student government. I dealt with budget issues, and I ran for to be a VP for our student government, and then we did a rally against budget cuts at the time. So I had a lot of my first activist powers during De Anza years. And then I transferred over to UC San Diego, and I focused mostly on my economics research.
That was something you saw as your future? I
did at the time. I was very interested in learning about how the world works, how different people don't have as much as the others. It was just an interest at the time, and I was wanting to dwell into it a little bit more. And so when I went there, I think two of the biggest classes that influenced me was econometrics. And in that class, you actually got to use science and stats to realize how much of a differential of like wages that a female professor would get versus a male professor. So again, that gender inequality you start seeing when it comes to economics and finances and things like that. So that was very interesting for me to see, and I was really interested in that class.
You know, one of my takeaways is you saying that you got to use science and statistics.
That's right.
That's very impressive.
That's right. I'm very I need facts. I would like to back up a lot of thought processes with facts, so you have something to go back to. So that was one of the biggest reasons that specific course had interested me, because economics in general is very general. It dwells into a lot of macro and not too much of like specifics. So when you have something along that lines, it really helps.
So the other thing is, while you were having your academic training, education, you were an activist, or you learned about taking responsibility. Maybe some of that came from the Singapore days of what doesn't work,
right,
and then tried to bring about social change. And you ran for vice chair in student government.
That's correct, yeah. Well, I think one of the biggest things that Singapore did teach me is that there are people out there who's going to bring you down. And when you face such things at such a young age, it sticks with you a lot more than when something like that happens maybe a little later. At least that's what I believe. And so when I went to De Anza, the first thing that I wanted to do was I noticed that there wasn't many connections within the student body government or just the student body in general, because it was just so diverse. And I wanted to see what I can do to help folks. And that's something I've always wanted to do. I wanted to make sure people were okay. They wanted to be, everyone felt included. And so since I was still interested in economics at the time, I figured I wanted to do it the budget way. And I started from a junior senator, moved on to a senator, and then finally running for election was a big deal because I did not want to. It was a very uncomfortable situation for me, just because I never felt like I wanted to go out there, get votes, because you don't really
put yourself out there.
Put yourself out there. And I think that was a little bit more challenging for me. But what my friends and my peers had actually told me was like, Esha, you realize you're the best qualified for this. Imagine if someone else less qualified was in your position. And at that moment, that was like the crystal clear moment for me. It's like, okay, then I have to run.
It clicked.
It clicked.
Huh.
It clicked. I'm like, you're right.
And that's logical.
It's logical.
And probably factual.
It's true. So I decided, you know what, I'm putting my name on the plate. And I had the most competition at the time, too. So that didn't decrease my fear, but it definitely made me more excited and vigorous to start doing my campaign. And it was pretty great. Pretty great.
I assume you won?
I did.
Oh.
I did win.
Okay, good.
I made sure. That was also the time where I recruited a lot of community members within our college to actually go out and vote. And it was really difficult when you're asking people in community colleges to vote, because not everyone's there as a full-time student.
Sure.
Many are part-time. Many are from different age groups, and they might not know you as well. So I made sure I stayed throughout the day from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., making sure I was able to contact everybody, letting them know about my qualifications. So I think I did really well in that part about engaging as many people as I could.
Well, you sound like an outgoing person, or at least you are now, and you went through those experiences. Now you're at Working Partnerships USA, I know, a nonprofit in the community. Can you tell us a little bit about Working Partnerships?
Working Partnerships is a think tank, and it's a great organization. We combine research and organizing to accomplish a lot of the things within our community within Santa Clara County as well as San Jose. I got into it starting to do economic research in a report that we put out every 2 years called the Life in Silicon Valley Live Report, and it actually gives a perspective from not just in tech industry, because that's what most people think of when they think of Silicon Valley.
That's right.
The Googles, the Apples, they don't really think about the people who are actually living here, and these are the low and middle class families. So I started doing the education portion of that research because that was one thing I was really interested in. And it's kind of where I understood the power of this organization, where we're actually speaking and dealing with working families, like everyday families. And that's something you don't really see too much of. And when you come into corporate world or anything like that, you think of profits or you think about the product, but you don't really think about the type of families that the product's affecting. So I thought this was a great way to get into it.
How has that report that's come out every 2 years, the live report, been received? Is it something that academics or other researchers use, do you think?
That's correct. That report has been used. I believe there was a couple of minimum wage campaigns that have been taken along in the nation that actually used our report. And it has everything from education about the labor statistics. It also deals with, not many people think about, like, poverty. We do have like a great amount of poverty within Silicon Valley just because of the wage and income disparities within our area. So things like that really mold this area, and it when you start doing that research, it applies to a lot of areas in the nation.
Well, and I see the value of that because I'm sure people want to have an idea of Silicon Valley as prosperous, everybody's doing well, and it's important to say you really need to look below the surface, and you, a fact-based person,
That's right.
are the one who brings that forward, you and your colleagues.
That's right. So
Great.
It's pretty exciting.
Well, we're going to take a little break right now. When we come back, I'd like to learn more about Working Partnerships and you.
Okay.
We'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Senator Ellen Corbett. I'm proud to be a Democrat. I've been a Democrat all my life. The reason that I'm proud to be a Democrat is I believe the Democratic Party is the party that cares about the environment, who cares about the future for our children, who will fight to make sure we have the best education for our children, and who fights for civil rights and is the party that is the party of inclusion. If you'd like to get more involved with the Democratic Party, please call us at 408-445-9500.
Welcome back to Democratic Television and our guest, Esha Menon. Esha, thanks for remaining in your seat while we took a break.
Thank you.
So we talked a little bit about research and the value of research, and you seem to really like that stuff.
That's correct.
That's probably a good attitude to have, because I think a lot of very important research has given a green light to where legislation should go and how we can, as a progressive country, move forward with starts and stops along the way by non-progressive people. That's a different subject. Have you seen progress come from some of the research you've been involved with?
I believe so. We do a lot of research within the healthcare field as of right now, and it has like prevention strategies for the future, for the health of our residents. And this research has been something that we've brought to Santa Clara County, and they've actually listened, and we're in process of doing something within the county. And then another research for which I wasn't directly
involved in.
involved
What are some examples? What could you be a little bit more specific?
For prevention strategies?
Yeah, in terms of what kind of research did you do?
Well, it's most recent. What we've done is we're trying to see if we can get some facilities, nursing facilities, so that one of the biggest reasons or causes for bankruptcies in America is actually due to medical bills, as opposed to what many people would think, like credit card bills or mortgages or anything like that. And so a lot of that goes into medical costs. So one of our strategies is to see how we can lower medical costs for both the hospitals and for the person who's actually going in. And so what we're hoping to do is have facilities where instead of doing most of your care within the hospital, which is a lot of money, transferring the patient over to a smaller care facility where they'll still get the care they need without having to spend as much. And so the hospital wins and the patient wins because you still are getting the care that you need without having to go into an expensive route.
Now, how do you get the sort of the green light to do that kind of research? Does somebody put together a proposal and go find people that are willing to fund it, or
That's correct.
do you hear of funding opportunities?
We hear funding opportunities within the county or any other funders, and we think of ideas and strategize it with our research group. And if we see something, we'll do a prep research on it, just see what the facts are, why this would be beneficial, areas that have actually completed something like this, and we might want to replicate it here in the county. And then once we have a little proposal done, we'll have our director of research go through and write down the proposal and submit it, and then hopefully we'll get something to actually start this process.
And I know that you guys have been involved in trying to make sure healthy food is sold in neighborhood grocery stores.
That's correct.
Even if there aren't stores that want to do it.
That's right.
How has that worked?
Well, we were able to go to different neighborhoods where predominantly they have just one store where most people go to. And a lot of these stores, it turns out, did not have healthy food options. So we were able to survey them and ask them, like, would you like the option? And a lot of folks were interested in getting more healthy food on the table, but, you know, with reduced cost, when they can actually get the food, things like that. But instead of just also concentrating on the type of food and the health of the food itself, we concentrated on how the food was made. And that involves the workers. Are the workers treated right? Like, are you really getting a whole food, which is from the beginning to the end, it was processed correctly, in which case the worker needed to be treated well, paid well, have their rest, things like that. And that's something that we're concentrating on right now, more on the worker aspect of it.
Well, that sounds pretty relevant, and I know there's areas that don't really get a lot of good food in it. Areas I've heard food deserts.
Like Central Valley, things like that.
What are the other kinds of things? You mentioned minimum wage, and I know there was a big campaign in San Jose to raise the minimum wage, and
that was a couple of years ago. Yes.
Yeah, so you must have
participated in that. Yeah, minimum wage was really interesting because that was when a lot of the young folks came into play. The idea was started by San Jose State students. And once that came into play, they came to us, talked about how this might be a good idea. We were able to partner up with labor organizations, elected officials, and finally, I'd like to think that because San Jose made that first step and raised their minimum wage, now California got the raise. And we actually had one of our canvassers participate on that day where Governor Jerry Brown talked about how we have to raise our wage, and he's working at a restaurant where they don't pay him too well, and he was talking about how this increase in wage really would help him and his family. So it really, it starts a domino effect, if you could say that, of good things, of good changes. So.
Well, that must make you feel good when you drive down the street and people are getting paid a little better and appreciating it and able to be better family participants and everything. What other kinds of things does Working Partnerships look at, or what are some of the passions that you have as a researcher, looking for those facts?
Looking for those facts. Well, we do a lot of research as well as organizing, and that's something I've also stepped into. And actually, research does play a huge part in organizing as well, where we have these canvassers come in. We lead canvassers into talking and educating the Santa Clara County residents.
And what's a canvasser do?
A canvasser is someone who might phone bank, as in talk on the phone to residents, or they can actually go door to door and see residents face to face and tell them about the issues that concern them as of today. So the past year, two of the big campaigns that we've done with our partner organization statewide called California Calls is we talked about the importance in funding school districts based on their need, not based on just making sure every school gets the equal amount of funding. Because the truth is, not every school district is equal. Some school districts have higher English learners, people or students who are in the lower income threshold, and they need more assistance. So we were able to go through some research on that, figure out that this would help them increasingly more, and then we communicated that to the Santa Clara County. So that was pretty interesting.
And so what do these phone banks do? Do you just have a bunch of people at computers and are just dialing, and how do they know who to call?
Well, the system allows you to actually see who you're speaking with, as in you'll know the names, their background, things like that, and you're having a very intimate conversation. It's about 2 to 3 minutes of conversation. You're asking them questions. You're getting their opinion as well, so you know what you have to convey. And if folks are not with us, they'll let us know. We're not, pushing them like you must do this. So it gives an open-ended conversation. It's definitely a conversation. So a lot of our phone bankers and canvassers really enjoy this experience because they're hearing feedback from not just what I say or what we say or what they know, but they're also hearing feedback from the community they're speaking with. And they might have different thoughts, and we might be able to bring that in and see if, it has any research behind it or any facts behind it. So it's a good way to get the community involved.
So what other kinds of calls have you done? I guess you can call people to poll them, to ask you, what do you think? And just take that, and that's a form of research. And then there's also calling people and sharing information so they can take action.
That's right. And we've done both. We've been able to, one of the biggest ones was on affordable housing. There was a Nexus study that was passed in San Jose City Council, which we rallied a lot of our community members around. We contacted them and asked them, would you be interested in having the government invest in affordable housing? And a lot of them, we were able to give them some facts about how Silicon Valley's rent prices are over the roof, one of the highest in the nation.
Oh, yeah.
Surprise. And just letting them know, would you be interested? And there's obviously expensive housing. So do we need, first, do we need to have affordable housing? And B, do you think the government should start investing resources into it? So this got over 4,000 community members in a span of 15 days of us calling, interested and pumped up. And we had a large portion of them actually go to the San Jose City Council meeting and speak on the issue. So that's how much of an effect that these calls and these conversations really make for the community.
And this is something that Working Partnerships is able to get funding to do.
That's right.
So it is partly research, and it is a call to action.
Right.
Maybe it can't be separated like this, but is there one that you enjoy more than the other?
Well, like I said, I don't think it could be separated as much as, because you have a research area where you get these facts, you get this knowledge, but if you don't do anything with it, it's going to be in your textbooks, and that's pretty much it. So by having an organizing component to it, you're actually moving what you learned and putting a positive impact on the community. So I think I enjoy both. I'm learning to do more organizing right now. It's something that I'm interested in, and I think I can actually, and it relates to the activist in me. It actually gets me to the community, gets me to convey these research facts into little bite-sized pieces so everyone can understand it. And we're trying to motivate this group around something that we learned through our research. So it's a beautiful combination.
Do you feel like you're able to do your social justice stuff through this work, sort of bring back something to the community that maybe you thought should have been there in the first place?
Oh, definitely, definitely. That's one of the biggest reasons I enjoy working here is you don't really think about, after college, you think about, a job. You think about a career, but you also you don't really think about how it should affect you. You think you should enjoy your job. If it doesn't, it's all right. It's a job. You keep going.
Paying
push
the
through.
bills.
Exactly, pay the bills. And so when you have a job which really mirrors your moral value and just how you feel about society, that is a great feeling. And by going here, I'm actually working with families and actually seeing an effect, like my work affecting their lives in a positive way. That's an amazing feeling. And so, and especially at a young age, like you're already pretty idealistic, and this really gets into it. So it feels good.
What do you folks think about what you're doing now? Do you share some of this with them? And
Oh, I do. I do. I'm very close with my parents, and every day, if I do anything cool or exciting, I'm like, my mom and my dad are the first ones to know about it. Even so much where I've let them know about things that are happening. Like during the minimum wage battle, I was talking to them about all this facts and how we've been working at it. And my dad's company, a lot of folks had views on minimum wage, and he was able to share that about what I said to them. And the same thing with my mom on certain issues about healthcare. That's one of my biggest projects that we work on. I was able to let her know about something, and she was able to share that with her colleagues. So this level of just how this way the community works, just by you saying something to them, just it really helps. And so my parents are really supportive.
That's great. We have about a minute left. So if people want to get hold of you, do you have a website or an email address?
Oh, definitely.
Could they write you somehow?
Our website is www.wpusa.org. It has our reports. It has up-to-date information about what we're doing. And if you want to contact me, I'm always open for it. My email is esha@wpusa.org.
So that's how to get hold of you and learn more about this important work.
That's correct.
And potential volunteer opportunities, and maybe see people at those city council meetings.
That's right.
Great. Well, thanks for being on Democratic Television. I think this has been very interesting and enjoyable, and we'll see what happens.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching Democratic Television. Give us a call at 408-445-9500 or visit our website, sccdp.org, or give us a call at 408-445-9500. And we'll see you on the campaign trail.